Hello and welcome to Movie RX Recreational Use, where we set healing aside and watch just to feel good. I am the prescribing doctor, Dr. Benjamin, and joining me today is Derrick. Welcome, Derrick.
Yo.
So we're trying something new today. We're doing recreational use. So I've been running into this trouble, Derrick, where there have been people that have wanted to come on the show, and they've wanted to do certain movies, but they said they didn't really have any medicine in it. That it was just movies that they really, really liked. So I came up with recreational use because, I don't know, I just think that might work.
Which that in its own form could be considered medicine.
Right. Yeah. And maybe it's medicine for somebody else, and maybe that'll spur them into getting a hold of me and being like, hey, that movie's medicine for me. Well, let me know. I let you kind of throw some ideas at me, and ultimately you let me pick. I think, what was it between? Was it between Scream and Cabin in the Woods? I think was kind of the...
I think that sounds right. Yeah,
decision.
Something like that. I was trying to go with something that was definitely Halloween.
Yeah. And, well, I've seen Scream, and I had never seen Cabin in the Woods, and it was an opportunity to watch a new movie that I hadn't seen yet. So I went with that. Today we're talking about Cabin in the Woods. Basic movie info on this one. It's MGM Pictures, released in 2012, directed by Drew Goddard. Stars Kristen Connolly, Thor, and Anna Hutchison. The IMDb description on this one: a group of kids go to a remote cabin in the woods where their fate is unknowingly controlled by technicians as part of a worldwide conspiracy where all horror movie cliches are revealed to be part of an elaborate sacrifice ritual.
I'd say that's relatively accurate.
Nothing like giving it all right up front. Like, I mean, that is the movie. Like the whole movie. All right. Well, we'll see you at the next appointment. I'm just kidding. So tell me, why was this one that you had kind of suggested?
So the thing with this one is that, like, it is, I mean, it definitely does talk about all of the various, like, horror movie tropes and horror movie cliches, right? But it puts a lot of that shit on its head, and it has this this underlying story that winds up, like, taking all of those cliches and tropes, and it does something actually, like, really interesting with them. This was an example of, like, Joss Whedon, like, actually doing something good, and not like doing the Joss Whedon that, like, we expect.
Right. Well, I mean, because there is one notable thing from Joss Whedon that we've talked about that isn't so great.
Well,
but,
yeah. We're coming right off the heels of doing doing the Alien Resurrection episode, so, like, trying really, really hard not to beat the shit out of Joss Whedon right now.
Yeah, he had some questionable judgment for that one, but this one he kind of goes back into what we expect from Joss Whedon, and that's interesting storytelling. This movie caught me off guard because when you told me to watch this, I started watching this movie thinking that it was just going to be a horror movie at a cabin in the woods. And then there's all this corporate shit going on at the beginning of the movie, when we get the title card, and I'm like, what the fuck does this have anything to do with a cabin? And then I start seeing all the stuff as they're putting everything in and all this other stuff. And then I'm like, wait a second, like, okay, so is this like, have you ever seen The Game?
Yeah.
Yeah, how his brother pays for this giant elaborate game where he's in real life being, like, fucked with by people. Like, he thinks he's being chased by people trying to kill him and all of that.
Yeah, totally.
But at the end, it just ends up being a complete game and just, whatever. I totally thought that that's what this was. Like, that Chris Hemsworth's cousin had bought them this trip to a place where you get a thrill at a cabin in the woods, and they just didn't tell him that that's what that was. but it just keeps going. Like, so every time something happens, every time some new goddamn thing comes up, I'm just like, whoa, what the fuck? And so now I'm looking at like Illuminati shit, and I'm like, what the fuck? You kind of threw me for a loop with this movie because I didn't know what to expect, and I still didn't. All the way up to the end of the movie, I'm like, what the fuck am I watching?
Yeah.
But
no, that's the good thing about it. Yeah, because it gets deeper and weirder and deeper and weirder, and you're like, wait, what the? Like, this started out as like a bad fucking Evil Dead ripoff, and now it's turned into like fucking like Lovecraft. Like, what the fuck am I looking at here, man?
right, the Tim Dezire character, the Mordecai. I thought for sure he was just going to be some goofy actor or whatever, but then they called him on the phone, and then they started giving him shit on the phone, like, you know, when he starts talking about, you know, the old gods, and you know,
the lambs
starts telling him, do you have me on speakerphone? You know, they're just fucking with him, and it's like, wait a second, this guy sounds like some kind of a true believer. Like,
right, exactly.
And these other like, people don't.
You've got so many,
but they are.
You've got so many like weird juxtapositions in there. You know, where you've got like some of this, you know, you've got like, the government guys, the like Manhattan Project, you know, kind of a thing. Like these guys that are working in like, you know, fucking, they seem like they're working in like Los Alamos or something, like in New Mexico or some shit, right? Like on Area 51, they're building a bomb, kind of a thing, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then you also have, you know, from that environment, you have like some of this like office space kind of like fuckery that's you know, that winds up happening throughout the whole thing, you know, that you see from these guys. And that bullshit of like, you know, am I on speakerphone right now? No, I wouldn't do that to you as he's doing this to you.
I love it. It's so much fun. So about this movie, you got it looks like it had a $30 million budget. Now the box office return, the 66.5 million return, is that US and Canada, or is that worldwide?
I think that's worldwide is what it wound up getting, is 66.5.
Okay. So it actually didn't make a ton of money. I mean, it doubled its money, but like in the grand scheme of things.
Yeah. So like this has an interesting history when it comes to like the release behind it, because it was an MGM movie. It was MGM and United Artists that originally created this movie, and then MGM went bankrupt like in the middle of the the movie came out. And they were going to try to make it 3D, even though like nobody wanted it to be fucking 3D. MGM's like, no, we have to make this 3D because they're stupid. And understandably enough, because they're fucking dumb, they wound up going bankrupt in the middle of this whole thing, and they shelved the movie while they were going through bankruptcy. And the movie sat on a fucking shelf and collected dust for like 2 years until Lionsgate bought it, and then they put they actually put the movie out. So it didn't get an opportunity to make the money that it did until after like 2.5 years after it'd been done. And like Chris Hemsworth had already became like Thor by that point. So like it was actually like it was made before Thor was released, but then it was released after Thor. So like that might have been part of why people actually noticed the movie and like actually decided to watch it, because hey, it's that Thor fucking guy. He just looks younger.
Yeah. Well, and he would have too, because I mean, he was playing what, like a high school kid or a college kid or something in this, and by the time you see him in Thor, by the time you see him in Thor, he's like, I mean, well, he's Thor, you know,
right.
Like
exactly.
mid-20s, So
easily, and I mean, and he had bulked up by he was the size of at least 3 other people by the time he came around to being Thor.
Right. So Drew Goddard, what do you know about him?
So traditionally that he's a writer, was mostly what he was associated for. He worked on like shows with Joss Whedon. So he was a writer on Buffy. He worked on Lost, Alias, a few other shows. He is the guy that brought us Daredevil from like the Netflix Daredevil, the one that's actually good. He is the creator of that.
Yeah.
So, that's actually, that was pretty cool. But, I mean, that's kind of the gist of it. He's mostly known as being a writer instead of a director. This was actually, I think, like the first movie that he ever did where he was directing.
Oh, that's cool. It gets him kind of into a different scope on the movie business, which, I mean, any actor who's gone producer and director will tell you the more positions that you know how to take in Hollywood, the better. Like, the more relevant you're going to stay over a course.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, there's totally that whole like grab your ankles position that Hollywood loves.
Yeah, yeah. And I mean, if you can get out of that position and get into the, where you're not the one grabbing your ankles, that's always
right.
better for you. But yeah, I mean, we kind of already talked a little bit about, Drew Goddard didn't do the writing. He just directed the film. But
so
the writing was done by Joss Whedon.
Both of them wrote it.
Right. Now, Joss Whedon and Drew Goddard writing it, I see that you have it on here, and I remember putting it down in my notes, was the screenplay was done in a weekend.
Yeah, yeah, like both of them came off of movies that like didn't do well. I don't remember what the movies were, but like Joss Whedon had a movie that like shit the bed. Drew Goddard had a movie that shit the bed, and then as like a coping mechanism, they locked themselves in a fucking hotel room and just banged out this fucking this script in like a 3-day weekend.
That's doesn't that just sound like a fun thing to do? Like if you were
yes.
If you had clout in Hollywood as being able to write a screenplay, like, wouldn't that just be something that you'd want to do like once every couple of months? Just be like, hey, I'm going to go and get a hotel room in, Bora Bora, and I'm just like, leave me the fuck alone. And all goddamn weekend, I'm just going to do nothing but write. And then just pound out a fucking script for a movie. Like, how fucking cool would that be? I'd just thinking about having the opportunity to be able to do that, to me just sounds like it sounds like a dream.
It could be a lot of fun. It could also be, it could also be a special kind of hell. I don't know. It depends on like what kind of movies you're making. If you're writing a movie like this in that kind of a 3-day ground and pound, all right, yeah, no, that could be a whole lot of fun. If you're doing like dramas or something in that kind of a time span, I don't know, man. That sounds very Bukowski.
Yeah, well, and just then you're not putting enough thought into something like that. Because that when you start making those kind of movies, like, could you imagine how different, like Good Will Hunting, if that would have been written in a weekend, how different do you think that movie would have been? Like,
yeah, that potentially could have been extremely different. I don't know. Like Affleck's character might have been different. It might have. His character may not have been like even remotely likable. I mean, it was only barely likable as it was.
Right. But he was the bomb in Phantoms, yo.
Applesauce. Bitch.
Actually, I saw that. That's up on Paramount Plus, I think. As
Phantoms,
a movie that you can watch, Phantoms, yeah. So
nice.
I might have to give that a watch. But I also like the commentary you have in here is that this movie was meant to be both a love letter and a middle finger to the modern horror genre.
One of the things
I could definitely
Joss
see that.
Whedon had said. One of the things that Joss Whedon had said, in interviews about this particular movie was like he is a huge fan of horror movies, right? Big fan of like classic horror. Enjoys the suspense and the effort that people put into the monsters and the build up and everything like that. What he didn't like was some of the cliches of like teenagers being stupid. Right, like slasher flicks where it's always the kids that go off into the woods to smoke a little bit of pot. Oh nope, they're all fucking dead. They're sinners. Like he wasn't a huge fan of that kind of nonsense. And he definitely wasn't a big fan of like the horror porn, the torture porn that we were running into in like the early 2000s, like that. With like the oh god damn it, what the hell is the fucking, like the Eli Roth kind of horror movies of like Hostel, where you watch people die in like horrible fucking ways, but there's nothing supernatural about it. There's nothing suspenseful about it, really. It's just you're watching somebody getting like garroted on fucking like reality TV, right? It takes all of the artistry out of it. So he took all of these cliches and then he really just like put them on their head. So it was like, okay, I'm going to make a horror movie that I actually want to make. And we're going to bring in elements of like shit that made horror, which is why you've got like a lot of like Lovecraftian kind of things in here. But then we're also going to take all of these cliches and we're going to make them actually mean something. And that was, built into as being like part of the ritual.
Right. And like the ritual itself, like it's pretty obscure through most of the movie. They do it purposely. Like, after totally, the first death, then they pull the thing and then, the basin fills with blood and then it fills up, these little troughs and, the whatever. But it's like, they're only showing you little bits and pieces at a time. You kind of get a general idea of what's going on, but they don't really show you until you're really ready to see it, until you're almost frustrated with how much you don't know.
Like everything goes like completely off the rails and like in the third act when just everything goes completely to hell. But if you're somebody that's used to watching these kind of movies, you start to figure it out. And like they subtly, and it gets mentioned as like commentary later on in the movie, but like subtly they kind of all start to fall into their roles that are like those cliched kind of roles, where you get like the jock leader guy, and you get the chick that's kind of the whore person, and you get like the innocent virgin chick, and like the good guy nerd guy, and like all of these they fit into the positions of all of these like horror movie tropes that you start to recognize, even if they weren't those people at the beginning of the movie. Except for the stoner dude. Like that guy was the fucking pothead like at the very beginning of the movie, and he was the pothead at the very end of the movie.
Yeah, I loved that character. As far as all the characters in this movie, I think he's probably my favorite. Yeah. And well, okay, him and the quote unquote good guy. But that's just because, like, oh man, I'm really putting myself out there now. But his character in Grey's Anatomy is one of my favorites. And so like when he popped up in this movie, he was a lot younger, but I was like, oh wow, like he's in here too. He does a really good job. Actually, what I really like about him is the healthy masculinity that he shows.
Yeah. Where he's like the jock that's not a piece of shit.
Yeah. And well, he's respectful. He's not afraid to show affection. He's also honorable. Like, I mean, he struggled a little bit there with the mirror, the one-way mirror.
Yep.
But
some would understand why he may have had like a little bit of a struggle there. But no, you're absolutely right. Yeah, he was like, no, I can't be a dick. I can't do this.
Yep. And then he traded her rooms, and that was cool. Yep. So yeah, I really liked the healthy masculinity part of Holden. But Marty, oh, Jesus, his conspiracy theory shit from the beginning all the way through to the end. It was great. Man. I love that.
I'm gonna go look at a book with pictures. Oh yeah, the bong mug. Yeah. The fucking the bong mug.
You know that thing really? That was a real thing.
Yeah. It was like a $5,000
it was functional
prototype.
As both.
Yeah.
Yeah. $5,000 to make that damn thing. That's so awesome. I mean, they're totally gonna have to figure out how to make that not so expensive. Especially as everybody starts legalizing that shit right everywhere. But yeah, that mug was. Oh yeah, I see that you have. I see now that you have that as a thing on here. The bong coffee mug thing. Yeah. Okay. So we kind of talked about Mordecai a little bit, but you tell me what you think about Mordecai.
So yeah, I mean when you said when you made the comment about like the true believer, yeah, it's totally nail on the head, right? And when you're talking about like, horror movie tropes that you have to have, yeah, the creepy gas station attendant. That's absolutely a fucking requirement, right? Like you would have had that thing in like Stephen King movies. You would have had that. I think you had a creepy gas station attendant in. You might not have had that in Evil Dead, but you definitely had it in like the Jason movies. Or you would have some like creepy local that was around. You had to have something like that. So definitely like checks the box, right? Of the guy that says creepy shit while you're on the way. So yeah, it totally worked. And then, I mean, the actor that they used for that is just perfect for that particular role. And then when they did the whole speakerphone thing, where it turned, it devolves into this like Office Space, like shtick. I thought it was fucking great. Yeah, it was probably a little unnecessary, but it was still funny.
I still loved it because it was like, I mean, what if you took that character from those movies and put him into the real world? Like, I mean,
right,
that's exactly what that was. Like, because, every time you see that character in a movie, he's not the kind to have a cell phone,
Correct. Yes, exactly.
But yeah.
And they're just like, the attitude that they have towards him is like, I can't even with this fucking guy is where they have, it because like, you can tell that some of the people that are actually like working at the office, or at the base or the center or whatever, the bunker, whatever the hell it is, you can tell that they're a little bit jaded at the whole process. Like none of them are like true believers. It's just a job at this point, right? Whereas you've still got this guy, this bumpkin, where he is completely bought the fuck in, where he's like, no, man, this is all gods and monsters and the lambs, and we're doing some shit.
Yeah. Yeah. The backwoods true believer. Like the guy on South Park, oh, you don't go down that road.
Right, exactly.
Now talk to me about the stoner conspiracy theories.
Oh man. So I mean he's got quite a few of like his various conspiracy theories, but like he starts to, at the very beginning, he's starting to recognize that, like, wait a minute, there's like shit that doesn't make sense here, because he starts to recognize when everybody is starting to fall into the trope that's needed for the ritual, right? Where you've got like the guy that falls into being the scholar and the guy that falls into being the jock or the leader and the chick that falls into being the whore or whatever. He's like, these people don't act this way. Like he's talking about, Chris Hemsworth character. And he's like, when did he start acting like all like misogynistic and shit? Like I know this guy, he's a sociology major, like he's on a full ride scholarship. Why is he acting like a dumbass?
Right.
He starts to see this shit and he's like, wait a fucking minute. Like,
right.
This doesn't make sense. And that's where he makes the comment of like, we're not who we are. And then he's like, I'm going to go look at a book with pictures, and it winds up being Finding Nemo.
Well, and with that whole, like, everybody's falling into these categories that they need to be for, a horror flick. I'm like, with all of that stuff, I was like, okay, so is everybody in on it except for, like
except
these
for the
people or whatever?
Right.
Yeah. Like, is the stoner and the virgin girl, are they the ones that are not in on it or whatever? And then, like, I mean, everything from I think one of the first things that crossed my mind was, is this how this studio makes horror flicks? Is that they put kids into this situation and they film it from all angles, and then after it's all done, then they go, oh yeah, we just made a horror movie. You guys are the stars, or whatever. Like, I didn't know what the fuck was going on. But my question is that, like, was this kind of one of those things where it's like people fell into those categories because they were supposed to, or Like, I mean, I guess I didn't catch if there was something that was happening to them that made them go into those roles.
So some of it they showed that there was a little bit of manipulation in there. They had talked about, there were pheromones that they were spraying into the rooms, and things to where they were trying to control the variables a little bit, or they had like extra spiked some of the booze, or they were messing with like the dude's weed, like things like that, to where they were messing with certain things to try to steer variables as much as possible, to where maybe they might have had like a potential predisposition to some of these particular like roles or particular attitudes, and they were messing with the variables to steer them in that direction, whatever direction they needed them to be in, as much as possible. Like using Chris Helmsworth's character as an example, to where he might be a sociology major, but he is also a jock. And he is also like, this guy that's like natural leader kind of a thing. So what do we do to kind of steer him in the direction of potentially being a bit more jock-ish, right? To where we have him as the athlete and less as like the sociology guy. And so there were certain things that were manipulated that had him falling a little bit more into that particular role, instead of going like potentially being the scholar, right? Because they needed that to be the other guy, the other, the nerd, right? So they needed to make sure that people fit into the particular roles, and so they just messed with the variables as much as they could to kind of get them to naturally fall into those places, because the kids themselves still had to make decisions. They had to choose to do the certain things that they did, but they could fuck with the variables as much as they could to like get them to fall into those roles.
Right. Well, and yeah, I kind of remember that with like the pheromones coming up out of the ground and stuff like that for, when they were trying to get busy, and they were trying to get the obligatory boob shot, and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
And that's when I thought they were making a movie.
Yeah, the problematic sex scene that probably wouldn't sell in today's day and age.
Right. So, like, I mean, that scene made me think that maybe they were making a movie, because that's like, oh, checking a box, gotta have the topless hot girl, or whatever. Right. So I thought maybe that's what they were doing, but then things keep going, like, well, I mean, she gets killed. So, but yeah, I do love how like that everybody just kind of fits into those roles, even though they didn't really at the beginning. Like, I mean, they were just kind of a well-rounded group of friends that didn't really have, I mean, because if you put those people into those categories right from the beginning, then there's no way that any of these people are friends. But
right, exactly. Well, then that's where it starts to become like a horror movie stereotype or horror movie cliche at that point. Even with like the nerdy innocent chick, right? The chick that's supposed to be the virgin, character. Even towards the end of the movie, when they say, the virgin, and they look at her and she's like, wait, what the fuck you mean virgin? They're like, we work with what we've got.
Right. So, let's see here. God, some of the quotes you have on here, like some of the stuff was really good. Like I'm going to go for a walk. Like how he heard the whisper, I'm going to go for a walk. And then like,
yeah, I'm the boss of my own brain.
I'm going to go for a walk.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good stuff. And husband bulge from the book.
Yep.
That's a husband bulge, by the way. Yeah. Valiant effort with the mug bong. Oh, when he pulls it out into a baseball bat. He starts using
uses
the
it
mug
to try to
bong
kill the redneck zombie.
Yeah. What was that family called? What was it? It was like
Buckner family.
I don't remember that. Oh, Buckner. That's right. Yeah, because he's
it's the Buckner family.
Because at one point he's like, oh, here comes Jonah Buckner to the rescue or whatever. Like,
yep.
Yeah.
And that was
goofy ass names.
Mentioning the Buckners is actually a really important part of the storyline a little bit of like the choose your own adventure story, right? Like when they're in the bunker and everybody's betting as to like what kind of story this is going to be, whether it's going to be zombies or if it's going to be the merman or, if it's going to be like the Wish.com Hellraiser crew. Like they're all, they've got these bets on like what the story is going to be, and they're in the basement with all of these various props, right? And it's going to be okay. Whichever one decides to stick on this, whether it's going to be like the puzzle ball or the creepy fucking doll in the jewelry box thing or the diary. And it winds up being the diary, and it's like, oh, we got the Buckners. All right, cool. Here we go. This is the story that we're going with. And that winds up being extremely important because they, once again, messing with variables, but the kids still have to make the decision, right? The group in they still have to make the decision as to where this is going to go. And so they make the decision as to what kind of monsters are going to wind up killing them and making them the sacrifice to the old gods.
Right. And the way that they do that, like the things that they can choose to do that ends up being like a nod to everything that you've ever seen in horror flicks. Now I'm not well versed in horror movies. Like that it's really not my genre. I mean, the whole point of my podcast is finding meaning in movies, and I've always kind of felt like that you don't really get a whole lot of that in horror flicks because the point of a horror flick is to scare you. Right. I'm sure that for plenty of people they are. But it's like, but from my experiences, it's like, if I want a good thrill, then I watch a horror flick, and like, I don't know, I guess I'm just not really much into it, but I mean, not saying that I don't like horror movies because I do. It's almost every time I watch one, like, even if I don't want to watch it, by the time I'm done, I'm like, that was a good movie. But even I recognized some of those like nods to other franchises, like the Hellraiser puzzle ball.
Yep.
The guy with the saw blades coming out of his head and all that shit.
Yep. Yeah, there's references to like other horror movies like all over the fucking place. The part in there where like she's reading the diary and and like there's something in Latin in there, and the stoner dude's like, I'm drawing a line in the fucking sand. Do not read the Latin.
Yep.
As she proceeds to read the Latin.
Of course she does. And then that's when shit gets fucked up. Yeah.
Right.
No, that's really good. I like that. Well, and there at the end, you kind of see everything coming together, like like you've got the underworld with the werewolf.
Yep. Yeah. You've got the werewolves in there. You've got like every zombie movie ever, that pops up. The weird, like people in the masks, that is probably a reference to like the Strangers or something. The other rituals that they're talking about. With like Stockholm, Japan, Buenos Aires, that's obviously like The Thing, The Ring, and King Kong. Like you've got like references to that kind of stuff in there.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. I just thought that was really kind of neat how it was almost like an explanation for why these are horror movies. Like that that all of the horror movies that have ever existed have been inspired by something that is quote unquote real,
right. Yep. Exactly.
I don't know. It added a little bit of a comedic level to it for me. And speaking of comedic level, I love how your note simply says Hemsworth's death, LOL.
Just, I mean, it was so ridiculous, right?
Yeah, just fucking going crazy and being like, okay, I'm going to save you all. I'm going to make this, I'm going to make it count. And I'm, even if I get across that thing and I have to crawl my way to help, I'm going to get people to come back and help you.
I'm coming back with guns and cops and choppers. And he's got this big fucking hero speech, right? Just for him to like slam into the fucking thing, right? The force field wall or whatever the hell it is, right? He slams into that and just fucking just brutally just dead. Not just kind of dead, just fucking dead. And immediately, just as soon as he hits the fucking thing where he's like, fuck yeah, and then boom, just smashes on that thing and just fucking all the way down, just fucked.
Yeah. Yeah, that was really good. Like, I mean, I had kind of thought about it before he did it because of the eagle at the beginning.
Yep.
You know,
you saw the reference
into the wall. So I was like, oh, well, maybe that was just an oversight or something like that. But nope. Then as sure as shit, boom, and it's like, okay, never mind. Fucking yeah, Hemsworth's death was really good in this movie. The good guy deserved better. Yeah. That was kind of a shit death, wasn't it?
Yeah. It was just a very unceremonious thing where like, and you knew because there was a reference in there, you know, you see the bloody handprint on the camper when they get into the camper. Like,
on the camper door.
You know that like, you know there's a Buckner in there somewhere that's going to like pop up, right? Some redneck zombie that's going to do something. Right. And you made it all the way through the tunnel. You made it all the way to Hemsworth's death. And then they're driving, like, you know that like somebody's coming out of the woodwork somewhere, but it's just like out of nowhere, stabbed in the neck, bleeds out, crashes the fucking, crashes the camper, and he's just dead. Like, that's all there is to it, is it just dead. Like, come on, man, you could have given him something.
Right. If it felt cheap.
Yeah. I'm like, like
I said, he was one of my favorites.
Probably got a better death.
Right. And it was just like, God, man, like, seriously? Like, can we just like give him something a little bit better? I mean, the guy was in Grey's Anatomy.
Sure. I'll give you, like, I've actually have never seen a single episode.
Really? It's not too bad. Like, I mean, my niece would really be upset with me for hearing me say it, but it's not the greatest show on television, but it's not bad. And if you want to watch a TV show with your girlfriend that you're conceding something, you know, like you're compromising, but it's something that you can actually watch and it's not too horrible, then it's a good series for that. But you'll have it for the rest of your life because, oh my God, there's like 30 seasons of it or something. But yeah, but like, I mean, he just gets killed for like no, like with no intrigue at all.
Out of nowhere.
It's just boring death. And then that leads very quickly into the last one. Well, what we perceive as the last one.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So it leaves us with the quote unquote virgin, right? And that also leads into probably one of the more insane parts of the whole fucking movie, with the post cocktail party, right? Because they're like, the death of the virgin is optional. Everybody else has got to fucking die, but this chick is optional as to whether or not they die. You know, she dies, and they leave her to potentially be like just beaten to death by zombie redneck while they're all going through their fucking cocktail party, right? You know, where like you got people drinking and they're hanging out and they're talking shit and they're lamenting about like the bet that they lost, and you've got the intern that's like trying to be cool. You got the one guy that's trying to get laid, like, and it's just you have this like mundane office party going on, while in the background on the giant screen, you have this chick that's being just brutally beaten to death by a redneck zombie.
Being beaten.
It's just fucking nuts.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't know that most people would really have caught that, but yeah, that was something that just kind of, wow, how sick are these people? Like, what the hell is this?
Exactly.
And that's when I still like, was it Illuminati? Was it, what the fuck is going on here? And
right. And it goes towards that commentary.
Even at that point, you're still clueless.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you are pretty clueless as to what's going on, and it does. It goes back towards that commentary, that underlying commentary for the people that are in the bunker of how kind of blah they've become to the whole thing, which goes more towards the end of the movie where they're like, well, fuck it, let's just let it end. Because they've just gotten so used to the whole thing and so complacent to the whole thing, to the ritual that like they've made it a game, or they've just gotten used to it. Like the one chick that's magic, monsters, gods. You get used to it, and the black dude's like, should you? Like, are we supposed to get used to this? Are we supposed to just become complacent into this? Because it's pretty fucked up when you think about it. Like, this whole thing's really fucked up. We should not be just taking this as like it's another day at the office. We shouldn't be making bets on this or anything along those lines. So yeah, like that, that cocktail party with the beaten to death on the big screen, like that's just continuing on the commentary of, as you said, like how fucked up are these people to where like they have nothing. They have like almost literally nothing as far as like empathy is concerned for these 5 people that have pretty much just been brutally killed so that the rest of us can continue to live.
Right. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, like, yeah, it's the needs of the many kind of an argument, but
right.
Like, at what point do you start enjoying it? Because that's what they were doing. They were enjoying it.
At certain points, it totally turned into entertainment. Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like, I despise the idea that humanity could get to a point that humans could actually get to a point where they're so desensitized to something like that they're like, oh wow, this is, in some
we're
ways
already fucking there, man. You remember the what the fuck was the movie series back in the late 90s that was like black market movies, Faces of Death? You remember hearing about Faces of Death back in the day when we were like middle school, early high school? Like, we're already there, man. It's just being able to separate yourself.
Right. And or separating yourself or being able to hold on to yourself, I guess, really. Because I mean, Jesus, it kind of takes me to a whole different franchise with Harry Potter. How do you split the soul? Murder? Or,
right.
I mean, can you really, like, do you really have to go as far as murder? Can, like, just simply drinking a cocktail and watching a girl get beaten to death and feeling nothing about it, is that a possible way to split your soul, or has it already been split? Like, I don't know.
It seems pretty fucked up to me.
Yeah.
And then we get to the
stoner
big red phone. Yes, we get to the big red phone that starts ringing, and they're like, somebody's not dead. Wait, what the fuck do you mean somebody's not dead? I watched him fucking die. And you're thinking of like, okay, well, it can't be the good guy, because like he got his throat ripped out. It's not the horse. She got her head cut off. I doubt it's Hemsworth, because he bounced like all the way down, right? And so like he's not just dead, he's fucking dead. And then of course it's the goddamn stoner. It's the fucking stoner that lives, man. He's the all of his conspiracy theory shit just pops up and winds up being true. And he pops up out of nowhere where it's like he's still there.
I mean, seriously though, like think about even in our circles, like if anybody's going to survive some shit like that, it's going to be the burnouts. Like,
probably,
it is.
Yeah. Most of the burnouts I knew, like, they're either going to be the first to die or they're going to be the ones to live.
Yeah. And ones that die, it's because they just don't know their limit. The rest of them, it's because they're oh man, like we all know that pothead, that one pothead who is like, he's the high functioning pothead, where he's not normal unless he's high.
Right. Yep.
So, the guy who gets high, and then that's when he notices when he starts seeing the patterns and keeps everybody safe. But yeah, he's, then he finally gets the win with the mug bong.
Yep. Yeah, they're in the elevator, and like he's figuring out how to fucking like hack his way into the maintenance elevator and shit. And you've got like the pile of dead zombie that's over in the corner, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I had to disassemble that guy with a trowel." And he's just like, you can tell he's kind of fucked up about it, but at the same time he's also like really just kind of even keeled about it. He's like, "Oh yeah, I had to chop that guy into pieces with a fucking trowel." Yeah,
his little one-liners, like the, good job, zombie hand. When the zombie hand grabbed the security guy's leg and all of that shit. His one-liners were just crazy awesome. Really good writing there. And this is about the time in the movie when they get into the elevator and they start going around, you like you have down here, that it's very 13 Ghosts like. I would definitely agree with that. This is about the time that I started to think maybe I need to start thinking about this movie from a different perspective. Maybe this is not a horror flick. Maybe this is just a fucking hilarious movie. and it really starts to look that way. Cause then they get in there, they start seeing all these other, horrors and things like that. Other stereotype, movie stereotypes and things like that. And then they just say, fuck it. And they release it all.
And just carnage.
And then you got a big fucking mess.
Fucking carnage.
Yep. Oh my God. That was so good.
Yeah. Where you've got like all of the SWAT team guys that like they get into the hallway and they're looking around, and then there's like the ding from the elevator, and the one guy's just like, fuck. And then all hell breaks loose.
Mm-hmm. And it's just absolutely perfect. And everything comes out, everything goes wrong or right or whatever it is that you want to call it. It gets everywhere, even up into the control room.
Oh yeah, totally.
And
and it's kind of funny. It's almost like a Just Desserts kind of a thing, because they've gotten so like complacent on the ritual and so complacent on the monsters that they unleash on the kids that they sacrifice all the fucking time. Well, now those monsters have come after them, right? And, so it's like they're finally getting what they deserve, kind of a thing.
Yeah, and then you like. You're doing really good with the Chekhov's gun thing, but I like how you're giving him different tools. So I'll let you take over on that.
Well, like so that guy's character, and I can't for the life of me I can't remember that actor's name, but that guy is like, he's always like that fucking guy. He's a bit actor. Like every time he shows up in a movie, he's always like that fucking guy. But
Bradley Whitford.
He's in there. Yeah, that fucking guy. Exactly. Yes. And he's like he's talking shit the entire time in the movie, and he's like the counterpart. He's the Randall to the older guy's Dante, right, if you will. And he's talking shit and he's fucking around the entire time, but he's also talking about it would have been better if we'd had a merman. Right, he's mentioning a merman the entire time throughout the movie. I wish we'd have had a merman. Wish we'd have had a merman. Wish we'd have had a merman. And of course, there's no fucking merman, right? And then when all hell breaks loose and it gets up into the control room and all these monsters are everywhere and they're fucking people up and all this shit, and he's like fuckered up on the ground somewhere, like he's knocked back or something along those lines. And you see this figure that's like crawling at him like an army crawl, that just this thump, thump, thump. And then it kind of like clears out from some smoke, and it's the goddamn merman. And even the actor, like, he looks over and he's like, are you fucking kidding me? And then he gets his face eaten by the goddamn merman that he's wanted the whole goddamn movie. It's like, well, you finally got your fucking merman. You finally got your fucking
deal
merman.
with it.
Yep.
That's so awesome. And then we get down into the chamber.
Yep.
The
and that's
blood
where they
chamber.
finally start to explain. That's where they explain finally, like, the last little bits of the movie plot that you might not have pieced together yet. They give it to you. And of course, it's goddamn Sigourney Weaver that has to fucking do it.
Yep. I loved it. Like, even Jen, when that popped up, Jen was like, of course it is.
Yep. It was supposed to be Jamie Lee Curtis.
It was awesome.
It was going to be Jamie Lee Curtis originally. Yeah, it was going to be her originally, and that would have been really fucking cool. But I don't know if she was booked and doing something else, or if they decided to do Sigourney Weaver instead. But it actually just made it even better, because you've got Sigourney Weaver, who was also, Dana, right, from Ghostbusters, talking to yet another Dana from Cabin in the Woods. It's fucking great. Just absolutely, like, it was an accident kind of a work, but it fucking worked.
It was still awesome. Yeah.
Oh,
no,
it's great. Yeah.
Her showing up was just awesome. And then she just lays it out. Like, I mean, it's like what you've expected. Like, well, not really expected, but they've been telling you the whole time what's going on. But I don't know. It just seems too simple or something.
Yeah. It was something that, like, seemed too simple, but at the same time, like, it fit. Like, it all kind of started to make sense of, like, we have this, like, blood ritual essentially that we're doing here, and it's for the old gods, right? And that's Joss Whedon, with his his winky face back to the original horror, where it's Lovecraft. It's goddamn Cthulhu, man. Where Cthulhu was all about the old ones, was all about the ancient ones and the old gods and all this shit. And so, like, they turn it into something like that of, like, we have to placate the old gods or they'll destroy the world. And you're like, oh, wait a minute. Now this takes a completely different kind of a twist.
Yeah. And I mean, it just kind of surprised me, that it was just like, I don't know, it got laid out, and this is when I finally decided that, yes, what I've been watching has been a hilarious movie. And maybe I take horror films too seriously sometimes, I guess.
Sure.
But I mean, my takeaway from it was that this is a horror flick that I can laugh at, and not laugh at it because it's so absurd and ridiculous, but I can laugh at it because it's just funny. It's genuinely funny.
Right. And that was the point. And that, like, Whedon wanted to make a horror movie that didn't take itself too seriously. And
he succeeded in great fashion. Now tell me about the final scene with the old gods.
The final scene is actually, I mean, it's kind of funny because, you've got, through the whole thing, you've got these guys that are just like, oh, we're just following orders, kind of a thing. And then they become complacent to it, with the guys behind the blood ritual, right? To where they have a very, we're just following orders kind of attitude. And then they become very, like, complacent and numb to the whole thing. And then that winds up biting them in the ass. And then in the end, it winds up kind of being almost like ethics. Ethics and loyalty that kind of wins, where she's just like, I'm sorry I tried to shoot you. I'm sorry I let you get bitten by a werewolf. And they're like, well, if this is a world where, like, I have to kill my friend for the world to survive, maybe we just don't let the world survive. Maybe we give somebody else a chance. And so then at the end, they're just sitting there at the stairs, and fucking Duder lights up a joint, and he's smoking his joint. He passes it over to her. She takes a couple of puffs, and they're just like, I wish I could have seen them. Big angry gods. I wish I could have seen them. before like everything goes to shit, right? And this, I'd read that this was kind of Whedon's nod to one of the lines in Aliens, between Gorman and god damn it, the fucking the chick, Velasquez, where Vasquez, and it's her and Gorman when they're in the air duct before they hit the grenade and they blow themselves up and they blow up like 40 xenomorphs with them or some shit, and their last words is you always were an asshole, Gorman, and then they blow themselves up. This was kind of his nod to that scene where they're both sitting there and they're like, yeah, that was kind of a dick move where I tried to shoot you. Yeah, it was a kind of a dick move where I let you get bitten by a fucking werewolf. Well, I guess we're just gonna let it go to shit. I wish I could have at least seen these giant gods before everything goes to hell. And then, of course, the giant hand like comes up through bedrock and kills them immediately, and then all hell breaks loose, and then credits roll.
Yeah, that's well, and that's epic. Like, I mean, especially when you can nod to an old flick like Aliens, but it's, I don't know, it brought some closure to the story in a way that, like, another story that you don't feel like is ever going to have closure. The one with the old gods, rising from underneath and all of that stuff. It's like, well, that's a story that we're not going to know anything about.
Right. Yeah. Nobody would have saw that coming.
This one. Yeah. But this story, we get that closure that, hey, sorry, I'm kind of an asshole, whatever. It's good. It's art. Hilarious art, but it's good. I like it. So yeah, I'm gonna say that anybody who hasn't seen this movie, go ahead and watch it. It's a good movie. Especially if you're not into horror flicks and you want to watch something for Halloween, this is definitely a good one. It'll give you a good laugh. Yeah, thanks for coming on, Derrick. Thanks for the suggestion. I'm glad you suggested this one. I liked watching it.
Good. Thanks for having me.
And you got anything you want to plug?
Well, let's see here. If anybody wants to watch like some guitar nonsense, you can find me on Instagram and YouTube at Deke the Gnome, THA Gnome. Sometimes you'll find some covers or just some random guitar nonsense on there. Otherwise, you can go looking for Mortal Dezire, Dezire, because apparently I don't know how to spell. That's that Nebraska schooling there for you. But you can find us on all the socials. That is a kind of a thrash progressive metal project that I've been attached to for like 15, 20 years. There might be some other music stuff coming down the pipe, and we'll see what happens.
It's awesome, and I will have some links to that stuff in the description on my podcast. So any of my listeners who are interested, just go ahead and go to your favorite platform and take a look at the description, and you can click on those links there. Aside from that, you all know the regular routine. If you want to be on the show, give me a text message, or you can leave me a voicemail at 402-519-5790. You can also send me an email to contact@movie-rx.com. If you're anxious and don't want to get on a microphone, that's cool. I totally understand. But you can always write me a paragraph or two and send it to me in email or any other form, and I can read it on air for you. Remember, this movie is not intended to treat, cure, or prevent any disease, and we'll see you at the next appointment.